Welcome, friends and future colleagues, to a new and reinvented Law Guest. You have come to the most interesting legal platform for talk shows and more. We give you candid talks with people who you look up to. I am your host for today, Muskan Naran. I am a second year law student from DY Patil University. We have with us today Advocate Rohit Ranjan Praveer. He is the founder of My Lord and a partner at Lex Partners. His key areas of expertise are criminal law, cybercrime, computer forensics, smart contracts, data privacy, and whatnot. So let's hear now from the unusual lawyer. Thank you so much for being on the show. So it was, it's such a great thing that you accepted the invitation.
Oh, thanks for having me and thanks for the invite.
So, sir, I actually started with saying that you are the unusual lawyer because you've mentioned it in your LinkedIn. So, what makes you the unusual lawyer?
Actually, the way that I have learned things is quite unusual because people dive into the profession and then realize that what are the things that I need to build upon, what are the skills that I need to have.
Right.
So I had a reverse way to it. I understood the technology first when I decided that I need to be into the cyber law field. So I understood the technology first. I read extensively about technology. So that is why I say unusual laws, because I am able to speak technology.
Right.
So
Okay.
the people who are working in the IT fields are able to resonate with me. They are able to understand my jokes. They are able to understand my memes. So
Right.
that's why I say I'm the unusual lawyer. When you meet me, you'll see that how can I, uh, you know, uh, those things that you expect out of an engineer. I have some sort of traits. Not
Right.
all of them, but some actually.
Wow. Okay. So, how did you get to learn all these things by yourself?
Actually, it was a disadvantage,
Hmm.
I would say, because in my first year, in the second semester only. By the way, I'm a product of a 5-year law college law course, BA LLB. So
Right.
in my second semester, there was one lecture about cyber law. So I was really interested into it. That see, this is something that I am able to, understand better, and I'll be able to work better in it. I'll be able to come up with innovative solutions. So I should do this. But again, as you know, there are many lawyers, not many lawyers. There are uh, technocrats, but not legal technocrats.
Right.
So it was a disadvantage. Then it was वो होता है ना ठंडे बस्ते में हो गया. So it was there
Right.
for a year, more than a year.
Hmm.
Then fortunately, in my third year, there's this guru of mine, not doctor, Professor Vaibhav Salukhi. He is also an advocate.
Hmm.
So to teach us about cyber laws, and his way of teaching was quite unusual as well,
Right.
because he did the way that I did not. He told us stories that, see, when I decided that I need to be in here in the cyber law field, I went to grab onto the skills. I did courses, I did certifications. This is what helped me. And he had a unique way of telling you things.
Hmm.
Even if he teaches about digital signatures, he had a story. Let's
Wow.
say this is the public key infrastructure, and
Hmm.
these are the most basic of things that no teacher emphasizes upon,
Right.
because ये जो sections हैं, they are just there to be in the law. That
Hmm.
this is a digital signature, this is the section to recognize electronic signatures, this is the section to recognize secure electronic data records. But he actually went on to teach us about what it was. Of
Wow.
course, many students appreciate it,
Hmm.
because how it is with students, they want notes and
Right.
probable questions, that's all. So
Right.
he didn't get into that.
Hmm.
So taking cues from his journey, I actually decided that maybe I should start right now, and maybe I should prepare myself so that when I get into the profession and when I tell someone that, okay, I want to do cyber law, I want to get myself into cyber law litigation, so I'm able to understand the concepts of computer forensics, the concepts of how the computer works actually,
Hmm.
what are the things that are going to be there in the charge sheet, what
Right.
is that you can get from the investigation. Those things will help. So
Hmm.
I did this thing from my third year onwards only. So that's
Okay.
why I say I'm kind of an unusual lawyer.
Right. Wow.
And it's uh, you know I was the guy who used to fix the computers. Any
Wow. Okay.
person, any person in my batch or any person in my college, even my juniors,
Hmm.
they know that okay, Rohit Bhaiya is there. If you have any problem with your computer, contact him. Your life will be sorted very soon.
Right. Wow. So, sir, actually, do you think that education right now, in terms of cyber law, cyber crime, and all, is it equipped enough to match with the real world? Because you can see that there is, I think, a gap between what we are taught and what actually the field requires.
I've actually come to realize that this is not just a problem restricted to the law field
Mm-hmm.
or the cyber law field.
Mm-hmm.
This is a problem of our country. We don't understand what education really is.
Right.
What we are taught to do is you remember that fact, you remember that thing, you remember, maybe you have to grab all the information that you can wrap around your head
Mm-hmm.
and go all guns whenever you are appearing for any exam. But that is not how life is, because
Right.
when you get into the actual practice of anything, be it management, be it law, be it uh, maybe medical profession has some luxuries, I would say, because luxuries because not every student is privileged enough to get practical hands-on in the college itself.
Mm-hmm.
Medical colleges do that to some extent, and they mandatorily give internships.
Mm-hmm.
But not every student of any other field like accountancy or law, management is
Mm-hmm.
having that. So that's a luxury.
Right. Right.
So I think the basic problem lies with the education pattern or education system of our country. And upon education, I have read more like Swami Vivekanand. So he says that,
Right.
you have to assimilate ideas, you have to assimilate concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Then only you are educated.
Right.
Because even a farmer is educated. He doesn't know how to write or how to
Mm-hmm.
read. But you can't say that he is an illiterate. He grows
Right.
things. He knows how to fix things. He
Mm-hmm.
knows how to do his trade. He is illiterate.
Wow.
So that's how it is. So I think we need to have some shift in our learning pattern so
Mm-hmm.
that it will help us. And
Right.
in the law there is a great deal of diversity because every person is different. So every situation is different. In
Right.
every case, the reactions of any person is different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you will react in a certain way, I'll react in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
That changes the whole scenario. So you have to be able to apply that logic.
Mm-hmm.
But we are not taught about logic. We are taught about information only.
Right. Wow. Exactly. So, sir,
Which is nasty actually.
so, sir, if you think about it, we mostly encourage very systematic form of education that, okay, you have to go to an educational institution, you have to study there, and you have to come out with that information. Whether you are trying to interpret the information in your way or not, or whether you're trying to put it into action or not, that is up to the person, that is up to the student itself. So,
Uh,
so actually, so
exactly.
with the practical sphere, if supposedly some, because you even see that because there is a bridge, that there is a gap that we have to bridge from learn whatever we are learning to whatever we want to do, supposedly in cybercrime or cyber laws. So how should a student do that? Like, what should I do so supposedly to study cyber law better or to actually go in the field without the assistance of my education institution?
See, uh, first thing I would say that, some industries have caught up to this problem
Mhm.
because you see TCS or Infosys, these kind of companies take up students
Okay.
based on some sort of test, some common standard of test,
Mm-hmm.
and they put them into their training centers and train them for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
But in the law field, there is a great difficulty. There is no such institution like that.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of it, there is the NLU versus non-NLU debate.
Right,
That's the problem.
right.
And then if you are interested into litigation, no big firm has that diverse litigation portfolio. Maybe they are into ADR or something.
Right.
But in criminal law, nobody is there.
Hmm.
Nobody
Right.
literally is there to train you. And the people who are doing good, especially in specialized fields, there
Mm-hmm.
are not so many people. So who do you look up to train yourself? Who trains you? Who
Mm-hmm.
teaches you about things? So it is better that, again, we have to have a shift in our uh, perception of an internship program, because every law firm right now offers an internship program. What our approach to it is that we'll go there, maybe we'll find if the work suits us or not. Maybe I want to take that trade as a profession or not. So
Mm-hmm.
students do things like this. For example, if somebody wants to train in IPR and try if try out if IPR suits him or not. Maybe uh, that magic happens, that this is the calling. It doesn't happen that way.
Right.
So you need to have a shift in approach, and you need to find that passion. Not even find, let it be. Just try to do things as much as you can. That will help you. And with that approach, if you are doing something for an hour or two, or a couple of hours, and if you get into something for months, then it automatically becomes your passion. You want to do more things. To apply for internships. That way, then you need to apply for internships, and then maybe learn on the job. That will help. That is a better approach, I'd say.
Right, right. So you discovered yourself, your calling, as to say that for cybercrime and cyber laws in your third year.
Actually, it's quite you know what is the word? I'm missing the
The
word,
journey.
but cliche, cliche.
Right, right.
Yeah. So it's kind of a cliche with me, because people say often tell me that you are very idealistic and principle based person.
Okay.
So how is it that happens with you?
Right.
But what is with me that I know is that I am very much determined.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't look back when I make decisions, and it's all about making decisions in your life.
Right, right.
That's what we don't get to do in our internships and our college. We only get information. We don't get to make decisions, because when you get to do that, you come across information that is useful. You
Right.
find that. So in the first year only, after I attended a lecture, it was from Dr. Pawan Dugal, actually. So he again told us some stories, maybe cooked up, but it worked. And
Right,
that magic actually happened for me.
right.
It doesn't happen to everyone. You have to be really lucky for that.
So
But
yours
I
was
think,
a love at first sight with cyber laws.
yeah, yeah, actually it happened like that, because I was into technology very much. I
Right.
was following operating systems and whatnot. So
Right.
I think at our age, when you matriculate, or you are into your 11th and 12th, everybody is into technology. You want to
Right,
know how the phone is functioning, how the computer is functioning.
right.
I took that interest to another level. That's just it.
Right. So at the time that you were studying it, was it as an emerging trend as it is right now? Because right now it's going to reach out for a big growth.
You see, in economic terms, we talk about this boom,
Right.
but I would say cyber law as a litigation field
Mhm.
is a newborn baby right now,
Okay.
and it is about to boom.
Mhm.
It's just that nobody is able to see it. When
Okay.
everybody realizes, because these days in every case there is some aspect of electronic evidence, some aspect of something, some gadget, some electronic
Right.
devices involved there.
Right.
Even in traditional crimes, I'm not talking about online frauds or misrepresentation, identity theft. These things nobody talks about,
Mhm.
but they are present in traditional crimes as well.
Right.
I had this case recently in which I had to secure bail, and the accused went to somebody's house.
Mhm.
The old lady opened the door. He fired upon her leg
Okay.
with a gun,
Okay.
and there was no witness to prove that he was there,
Okay.
apart from the people who are inside the home. And they are victims. Of course, they are going to uh, uh, give their
Side.
testimony against that person.
Right.
So how does the police prove it? They actually seized his phone and gathered the GPS data.
Okay.
Through that GPS data, they were planning to
Mhm.
uh, establish that he was indeed there.
Right.
So these aspects of any case you need to look upon to, and you need to cross-examine maybe the complainant, maybe other people who are there, maybe the IEO.
Mhm.
So these aspects can't be neglected, and these aspects are there in each and every case right now.
Right. Right now, I
At
don't.
some point, is involved.
Right. So right now, because it's actually you are trying to track their digital footsteps basically, when you are
Yes,
actually going through a crime. So
yes, yes,
when
yes.
does in India, do you think there is an adequate system of storing digital evidence? Because I don't think India is right now at that par with the other countries.
See, uh, when you try to do something, it takes some time
Mhm.
at the policy level.
Right,
It's not like it doesn't happen चुटकी बजाते.
right,
वैसे ना कि चुटकी बजाते होना चाहिए. It doesn't happen like that.
right,
So it takes some time. Any policy decision takes 5 to 10 years to, be implemented properly.
right,
And when you try to implement that policy at a scale that India is,
right.
So it becomes a problem.
Exactly.
But many states are having different approaches to it. And see, there are no standard operating protocols right now in forensic laboratories. There is a fundamental problem with these laboratories is that they are all government owned. Virtually, they are prosecution. But the concept of the IO, investigating officer, or a forensic specialist, is to present both sides of the stories. But you know how the police prosecutes? The police is the prosecution.
Right.
When the matter comes into the court, then there is of course the prosecutor. But the police also, the IO also acts as a prosecution fundamentally. The forensic laboratories are an extension to it.
Okay.
And you know how prosecution operates. So there are many flaws with these forensic laboratories as well. I'm not even just talking about the state laboratories, even the CFSL, the CBI CFSL is not functioning very properly. And I have it on record that they don't follow a standard operating procedure,
Right.
which is a must.
Right.
But there is a public perception also to it. And I'll say that judges are also a part of that public.
Right.
They're not somebody who are infallible. So the public perception is that forensic evidence is infallible, which is not the case.
Right.
There are many loopholes. You can get your defense very strengthened because of those loopholes. So there are not dedicated standard operating procedures which should guide them as to how they have to investigate a case, what clues they have to follow, and how do they have to preserve the evidence. But at least I would say that there is a basic understanding that whatever digital device is there, you have to create a mirror image of it, and then you have to hash it. And the state governments are training police officials in that regard. Maharashtra has even come up with an idea that, you know, at every district court level, they'll have some forensic expert who will mirror these evidence. For example, in a case, you seize a laptop. So it takes a lot of time because these forensic laboratories are just down to 1 or 2 laboratory in any state. So they are overworked. So Maharashtra did what they appointed forensic experts at the district court level, and they decided that if you have to obtain a mirror copy of your evidence, because you need it for your defense to build up upon your defense.
Right.
So that expert will create that mirror image and calculate a hash value. You can match it. If you are satisfied, take it away. You can use it to establish your defense.
Okay.
Something is happening. It will take some time, but it will come up to track.
Right. Actually, the matter of concern right now, as you said right now, it's going to take at least 5 to 10 years to actually implement it on every level.
Yes, yes.
But sir, the issue right now is that because we have been seeing ads of a lot of coding systems. Like there is a thing called White Hat Junior, which is going to start teaching people from like class se bachcho ko, they are going to start teaching them coding. So, sir, if you are expecting a boom, it is going to come in the near future because there are going to be a lot of cyber crimes and a lot less cyber laws to deal with them. And also the implementation is going to, not match up to whatever the crime is going to be. Because if a person starts using it from the age of, let's say 11, 12 or something like that, and he's learning up to that, and then he will obviously be, like he or she obviously will be mischievous enough to go into places where the protocol doesn't take them. So, to deal with them, I think it's going to be really difficult in the future. And of course, I think there are substantial changes that need to be there.
Actually, the rat race has gone on to another level,
Right.
and I am very sure that Indian parents are very much interested in teaching their kids coding
Right.
at the age of 6 or 10 or whatever it may be. But and there are very many arguments that coding is the future. You need to code to survive.
Right.
Industry is talking about it. There are many reservations as well that artificial intelligence will do this, will do that. But I actually look upon it from two perspectives. Of course, any coin has both sides. So first of all, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe more startups will come up because these children having the basic skills in their arsenal since their childhood. Maybe they'll come up with more ideas to fix many problems. These problems may not necessarily be social; they may be economical as well. So people problems will also be solved because of it. Ashton Kutcher runs an NGO, some kind of an NGO, I'd say. It actually codes to track human trafficking.
Wow. Okay.
They save children using AI and other algorithms. So it is a good thing. Social, economic, both impacts are going to be there. But again, somebody at some point is going to have their minds blown and maybe get into depression and do something very tragic.
Right.
That is always one aspect to it. But you can't look up to it because
Right.
you have to look up to the positive side of things.
Mhm.
The other issue that I find is that you know laws are not supposed to be spider web. As much as it hurts the prosecution, it hurts the rights of the accused as well.
Mhm.
The accused doesn't know what are my rights, and you know how it is about the rights of the accused these days. We have seen the
So,
anybody's opinion or any news anchor's opinion. These things drive the narrative these days.
right.
But laws are supposed to be very simple,
Mhm.
and I am of the view that the government has now started to come up with uh, personal data protection laws, non-personal data protection laws, and whatnot. Why not just one information technology law when the government has the authority to, you know, create rules and govern every or regulate any party through that rule? Because we already have the data protection regime under the IT rules only.
Right.
They define what is personal data, what is sensitive personal data. So why create another bill?
Mm.
Just put it under the rules.
Right.
If at all you need that it is something very different, then maybe you can. But then again, you have this personal data protection bill, then why do you need to have another non-personal data protection bill?
Right.
Why
Mhm.
not bunch it up with the personal data protection bill only? So
Mhm.
they are creating a lot of mess doing this, and it was this government had promised that will cut down on laws, and they actually started to scrap old laws,
Mhm.
but their speed of coming up with new laws is something fantastic.
Right.
So it really doesn't help.
Right. Mm.
The basic things, there is a very little research on cyber law jurisprudence. So
Right.
maybe some wise guy will someday come up. I am not
Right.
going to be that guy, I'm sure. So some guy will come up someday and tell that okay, we need to have these fundamental guidelines.
Mhm.
And there are arguments going on already
Mhm.
because there are some jurists who say that the code should be the law, and we are seeing that coming into shape as smart contracts are being implemented. The code regulates them. The code has edge over that contract.
Right.
That I'm not sure how smart contracts work or not,
Not
and
really.
this
That
is
was my second question.
this is something new actually.
Right.
So the code is already working its magic.
Mhm.
So there are many arguments. Let's see what steps the government follows.
Right. Since I am not aware of what smart contracts are, if you would be able to tell a little bit about it.
Smart contracts in very simple terms. Uh, you must have heard of the blockchain technology.
Right.
So just as we intermingled Cadbury with chocolate,
Mhm.
blockchain is intermingled with bitcoins. But blockchain is the underlying technology beneath it.
Mhm.
So using smart contracts, what we basically do is that there is a transaction. Now you say that some event happens,
Mhm.
then this amount must be paid. As soon as that event happens, the amount will automatically be debited,
Mhm.
and that transaction will be completed.
Mhm.
That's smart contracts in
Isn't
simple
it
terms, very simple terms.
contingency contract?
Yes, there are some contingencies. Of course, you have the Contract Act to govern upon those principles and facts.
Right. So, sir, as a law student, whenever we are trying to study cyber law or whatever we are trying to, achieve in that, so do we get to choose a specialization? What would you prefer? That do we choose a specialization in the 5 years itself, or do we practice and then we get to see that?
I have this experience that there is no specialization in litigation.
Mm-hmm.
In litigation, there is no specialization.
Right.
There are two reasons for it. One, you don't get to cherry pick cases because you don't have any cases initially.
Mhm.
You may start to specialize once you have many cases.
Mhm.
But beggars can't be choosers, you know. So if you are starting on your own practice,
Right,
so there's no specialization. You need to have the same have the understanding of criminal procedure code, IPC, and other acts.
right. So,
In the civil or corporate side of things, I would say you may specialize, but again, they are called technology lawyers.
right.
And what functions are you supposed to perform? You have to draft contracts.
Mhm.
You have to see the limitation. If any dispute arises, you have to go into arbitration.
Mhm.
So every subject is so much interconnected. You can't
Right,
be so much specialized.
right,
It's not like a job of a coder that you are restricted to this sphere of the software or
right.
this particular thing.
Mhm.
Lawyers can't be operating that way.
Mhm. Right. So, any student who goes into cyber law, do they have to actually be very equipped with technology? Do they have to know technology like on their fingertips?
I don't recommend having anything on your fingertips because again we go back to that discussion that education is not supposed to be that way,
Right. Mhm.
and it's always going to evolve. If
Mhm.
you don't keep up with things on the technology side, then you will be left behind, of course.
Mhm.
So it is more about we read up cases, we
Mhm.
keep ourselves updated with cases. You have to keep up with technology in the same fashion.
Right.
There's no escape to it. And if you want to get into technology law, into cyber law, first of all, have an understanding of the basic concepts. For example, networking.
Right.
Networking is not going to change.
Mhm.
Maybe new there are going to be ways to make it work efficiently.
Mhm.
Like there was 2G, there was 3G. Now we are having this conversation on 4G. So
Mhm.
maybe it will become efficient, but the underlying principle, the way it works, will be the same.
Right.
So you need to have an understanding of basic concepts that what is coding, what is a source code,
Mhm.
what is an object code,
Mhm.
what is unauthorized access, how does a computer function.
Mhm.
Once you have an understanding of how the hardware functions, that is not going to change for much. You
Right.
just need to update yourself. So have that basic understanding, and I believe there are not many things. You need to understand encryption, you need to understand hashing. To sum up as an umbrella term, you need to understand cybersecurity and computer forensics. That's it.
Mhm. Okay.
That
Right.
will cover you up for any venture.
Okay. So, any kind of internships that you recommend that a student should do while they are trying to do when they're trying to learn cyber law?
I would say that even in your internships,
Mhm.
people want you to actually contribute, not just learn,
Mhm.
because it can't be one-way traffic,
Right.
and nobody has time to teach you because lawyers are so much overworked
Mhm.
because whoever is working in technology law is a specialist.
Okay.
I'm maybe contradicting my own statement, but you know how the market works. If you want to have a good defense in your mining case, you'll have a lawyer who specializes in mining, who has
Right.
handled more cases, so to say.
Right.
So that is how it works. So people are already overworked. They want you to contribute when you are interning with them, and actually people look up to hire you because if you are working well. So I would say that in the second or third year, you should start understanding these concepts of technology
Mhm.
and just focus on technology. You are not supposed to be an engineer. You are supposed to be a lawyer. So you need to build upon your practical skills as well. Start
Mhm.
reading about contracts. Start drafting contracts. Because
Mhm.
even if you're a technology lawyer, you are going to operate in these kind of things. And along with it, a, a simple contract will teach you many things. A
Mhm.
simple case will teach you many things. For example, a startup comes to me and tells me that, okay, I want to create a technology focused startup.
Mhm.
Obviously there is going to be company law involved.
Right. Right.
So read about those things. Try to find what practical work lawyers do in these arena.
Mhm.
Then you will be able to help. If you don't know how to uh, draft a contract, how to draft a notice, any lawyer who works in the technology law field is not going to be interested in you.
Right.
Similarly, if some litigator is there who is working in the criminal law field or more specifically the cyber law litigation field, then he at least expects you to know how to write an FIR.
Hmm.
At least you can take that burden off him, and maybe he'll even offer you some consideration for it. Maybe he'll ask you that if you are interested. So if you are interested, you can join us and we can collaborate together.
Right.
So these skills are very much in demand.
Hmm.
People don't have it. And if you build upon these skills along with your legal skills, then you are going to make it
Right.
big.
Because you said that all fields are kind of interconnected, but still, if somebody who specializes in a certain kind of field, is it difficult in India to get a job in that or like look for a job in that?
In big firms actually, if you can't make it big alone.
Hmm. Right.
So they have these teams. They have the litigation team. They have the dispute resolution team. They have their
Hmm.
contract teams, M&A teams.
Hmm.
So each team will guide you on a certain aspect. If there are two, three things that are interconnected, so maybe they'll have different experts to work on it. Those guys will collaborate and come up with the best solution. So
Hmm.
maybe you can specialize in that. But again, you have to have that, have to choose that what team are you going to be working with. You have
Hmm.
to prepare your CV as such. And
Hmm.
you know, interesting thing about CV, you just don't need to show things that I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. You have to make work actually, which gets reflected in your CV. Maybe you start writing articles.
Hmm.
These certificates uh, don't actually help unless you have some skill. So if you show that you have written this article, you have worked on this, people go and check out.
Right.
If they like your work, you'll have the preference, of
Hmm.
course.
Right.
So you should actually identify what team do you plan to work with, and accordingly, maybe you can get in touch with any person who is working in that team. So
Hmm.
he'll be able to guide you better. Maybe build your skills as such.
Right.
But again, it's a big gamble because openings are not always to come by.
Right, exactly. Because I can imagine, because since it's an emerging field, you would obviously imagine that only a few seats are available and they're going to take people, just a few people to fill
Mm-hmm.
these seats. So,
Yes, yes, yes.
whoever has a specialization, do you think they have obviously they have a better advantage than the other people. So,
Mhm.
do you think that these specializations and everything, by doing courses and different online courses and everything, is going to help to, enrich that?
Uh, Regarding the legal work, of course, they are going to help. I don't actually recommend any course because you do any course, but unless you start doing something on your own, you are not going to learn.
Right.
You have to take the initiative yourself.
Mhm.
So, but again, if some course helps, that is very good.
Mhm.
Regarding technological learning, there are many courses.
Mhm.
In contrast with the legal field, uh, because Lawsico is operating, there is Enelion, but there are very few players, two or
Right.
three at max.
Right.
Right now, because of Corona, many law firms started to offer their certificate
Mhm.
courses.
Right.
In the technical field, I think there is a plethora of content. You can go to Coursera, you can go to edX, there is Library, there are many platforms through which you can learn.
Mhm.
So side by side, you need to work upon both these things.
Mhm. Right. So, with cybercrime, what would you, so cyber laws and all, when you're working in a field, how would you say are the work hours and how would you say is the burden of matters on you at that point?
You know, the grass is always greener on the other side.
Right.
But make it a point that you have a habit of working 10 to 12 hours at least.
Okay.
You can't
Okay.
survive the legal field without it.
Right. Okay.
That is how it is.
Hmm.
Because there are many lawyers, but there are not good lawyers. If there are 100 lawyers, they look up to one lawyer so that they can recommend them cases and earn something out of it. They
Right.
don't do it on their own.
Hmm.
So that is how the legal field is. So be ready to work your ass off. That's the only suggestion that I can give.
Right. So, if you talk about yourself, was there any point of time that you have been overworked or you have been, you felt that it's too much to take and you just thought of giving up?
There have been many times actually. I consider myself very strong mentally, but hard work takes its own toll.
Right.
I was working. My working hours, interestingly, were 9 to 8. The
Okay.
first time that I asked someone in my office that what are the working hours here, they simply told me 9 to 8. to it, and I thought that the person must be joking,
Right.
but that wasn't the case, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be there at 9. I used to leave the office at 8, and
Mm-hmm.
some days you don't get even that privilege.
Okay.
You may have to leave at 8, you may have to leave at 10. One
Mm-hmm.
day I left even at 12. And I consider myself lucky that at least my senior was a litigating lawyer, so he had to be in the court at 9 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So at least our office didn't stretch beyond 8
Right.
on most days.
Mm-hmm.
But on the corporate side of things, people are not that privileged. You
Mm-hmm.
know, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. people are working. You can see the lights on in their office.
Okay.
But it depends on the kind of organization that you join, or if you are starting out independently.
Mm-hmm.
But again, even after being trained for a year to work 9 to 8,
Mm-hmm.
it became actually kind of a habit. Even today, I enjoy my Sundays, I take it off. And I started to take it off once I realized that, okay, this is something messing up with my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are overworked, you are sleep deprived.
Right.
So it doesn't work, yeah, very good for
Mm-hmm.
you. So, but on my weekdays, I get up, I am on my table by 9,
Okay.
max 9:30.
Wow.
And I stop staring at my laptop at, I believe, 10 or 10:30 in the night.
Wow. Okay.
That is how it is.
Okay. So how does one develop such a work ethic? Does it happen from law
you
school or
know, it depends upon your priorities actually. I won't say that one size fits all. I
right?
am kind of a pantomath. A pantomath is a person who is interested in all sorts of information, whatever you can get your hands on.
Okay. Wow.
But I wouldn't recommend anybody to be like that. Recently, in I think 15 or 16 days ago, I
Mm-hmm.
suddenly felt something is going off. We switch off something. So I thought that something has switched off into me, and I'm not able to focus. I'm not able to work.
Okay.
And I took off for 3 or 4 days. I
Mm-hmm.
believe on Thursday, some you can't explain it properly because something happens, and you
Right.
just know that something has happened, something has gone wrong. You need some rest. So
Okay.
I finished off with work and
Mm-hmm.
took rest for 3 4 days, and you are back to normal. But it depends on somebody's priorities if you want. But I wouldn't recommend anybody to overwork themselves. It's not good for you. In the
Right.
longer run, it won't help.
Right. There is a burnout that happens that it like you can't
Yes,
replace
yes,
that. Right.
yes,
So
yes.
you said that you keep
You
a
have to be considerate to yourself.
right, exactly. So you keep a very calm head and you try to, you said that you're a very sorted person. You always keep yourself
Mhm.
very calm and sorted. So how do you manage to do that? Don't ever like, wasn't there any point in your life that you have had insecurities or doubts about you or your profession, anything
I wouldn't say doubts because I would say at some point some doubt crops up,
like that?
but then you must be having some friends, you must be having some seniors.
Right.
You can go and consult them. If you don't have, please feel free to reach out to any senior who is working in your profession. People are considerate enough to give you some time. They'll
Mm,
counsel you. So
right.
I am actually fortunate enough to have some good people in life, some good seniors. It is a challenge to have good seniors in your early years.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been fortunate enough to have some fantastic teachers as my seniors.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm able to look at the bigger picture, and I try to remain calm that it's going to work out. Maybe not this way or some other way, but it will work out eventually.
Right. So, what do you enjoy about the areas that you have an expertise in? Because there are a lot of areas that are very
Um,
exciting.
investigation is something which fascinates me very much. It fascinates anybody actually
Mm-hmm.
because it is one field that we are the generation which has grown up watching CID and everything. So
Right, right,
that pata karo mentality is there in us.
right, right.
So whenever you get a case
Mm-hmm.
that some fraud has happened, you try to figure out that what must have actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
You try to gather all kind of evidences. You kind of try to find clues
Mhm.
that what led to what,
Right.
and that is what actually helps your case,
Mhm.
because the police are not interested in lodging your case. But
Mhm.
when you write an detailed complaint,
Mhm.
that nobody can say that this is a non-cognizable offense, that this is something that I can't act upon.
Mhm.
So it doesn't help. So if you have this kind of a passion and you find information, you give it to them, they can't refuse actually.
Right.
Refuse your case. They have to lodge an FIR because
Right.
they see that this kind of a complaint I'm getting, and I have seen in my cases, in any case that I have uh, given a written complaint,
Mhm.
police have done nothing but copied and pasted my complaint. They have
Okay.
not added a single word to it.
Right.
So that is the most interesting thing that I find.
Mhm. Right. So, when
It actually gets, I'm sorry to interrupt, it
yeah.
actually gets very much interesting when you are at the stage of evidence. I have worked on many cases of which were at the cross-examination stage. It gets very interesting which person has said what fact is there in the charge sheet, which person corroborates it. So you
Right.
try to uh, you know put up the pieces together.
Right.
So
Wow.
that kind of a mindset helps.
Right. I think everybody who goes into law has a kind of an analytical and inquisitive mind where they
Mhm.
try
Yes,
to, when it's
yes.
very easy for us to, logically reason everything, logically
Ah,
put everything together. It actually is a really
exactly,
interesting, right. So,
exactly. That is the
right. We have actually grown up on BBC's Sherlock Holmes and everything. You feel like you want to, do something like that. So what are the problems that are coming ahead for us in the terms of cyber field, and then how do we solve them? What are your suggestions for solving them?
I think not focusing upon many fascinating problems. I would just suggest that some proactive steps need to be there. Right
Mhm.
now, no authority is acting on small complaints.
Right.
And actually, if you see these small bits, they add up.
Mhm.
The police are interested in cases which weigh maybe more than 5 lakh rupees, more than 10 lakh rupees.
Mhm.
But if 100 people are duped of 50,000 rupees, you can calculate how much of an amount
Right.
it is.
Right.
And people are getting away with it.
Right.
You know how people deposit 49,000 rupees and not 50,000 because you'll have to give your PAN information. That is
Right.
how the criminals are operating. They know the cyber cell won't take notice of it unless if it is more than 5 lakhs. So I'll dupe the person of 4 lakhs.
Right.
And there is one more problem that I find, that there is not much training of police.
Mhm.
They are simply overworked fellows. They are people like us,
Mhm.
but they don't get much holidays. Of course, lawyers are also overworked. They get paid for it. But
Mhm.
the police also don't get well paid.
Right. Right.
That is also one problem. So police reforms, I think, are a must. They
Mhm.
are the thing that is going to help the most, because if you don't pay them well, they are going to find ways to get money, and
Mhm.
in that case, they are going to help criminals only.
Right.
That is how it is right now. There are many few good policemen who are actually trying to take up your case. I
Mhm.
have not seen a single policeman who is interested in a cyber law case. They simply turn you away कि आप cyber law cell चले जाओ, cyber cell चले जाओ. Then the cyber cell guy tells you that we only take up cases which are more than 5 lakh rupees. And some states even have that.
Okay.
And then comes again this problem of corruption and everything, because cyber cells are one point of entry. If
Right.
you have 10 police stations to manage, you'll find it difficult. But
Mhm.
if a criminal is hand in gloves with the cyber cell,
Mhm.
then that is just to manage.
Right.
It is easier to get with it. So police reforms need to be there. They need to see the bigger picture here.
Right. Right.
People are losing their lifetimes of savings. It's very unfortunate and very sad to see.
Right. There have been many web series showing that Jamtara is a web series. It shows that in the place like Jamtara, they try to call people up and they try to get money from
Mhm. It's
them.
happening day and night. You won't believe. And actually, police can help people recover their money,
Mm-hmm. Right.
because even the banks are not proactive in it. Even the policemen are not proactive in it. People actually, when a criminal dupes you, he tries to stash it into some account, a number of accounts.
Right.
And it takes a day or two for them to actually buy something or withdraw that money. If
Mm-hmm.
the police acts in that uh, time limit, they
Mm-hmm.
can save the money, but they are not so proactive. They have other chores to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
They are overworked. I actually feel sad for them at some point because they are overworked.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
can feel their pain, I'd say.
Right. I get it. So, sir, thank you so much for coming on the show. And before going away, I'd just like to ask you, so what lies in the future for you?
The future is actually great, especially for cyber law aspirants who are trying to get into cyber law litigation.
Mm-hmm.
I have come across a few law firms, great law firms, who are working in the technology law fields, who are coming up with their cyber law practice.
Mm-hmm.
This is something new.
Right.
Uh, Law firms, especially corporate law firms, don't invest in litigation.
Mm-hmm.
They hire somebody else. But people have started to reflect upon this point, and they are starting to see that
Right.
every case has some sort of cybercrime or electronic evidence related to it. So
Right.
they are trying to extend their practice to that extent.
Right.
If you are able to uh, grab the concepts of procedure, evidence, it is certainly going to help along with a very good understanding of technology.
Right. Okay.
And I'll be very frank that you can't understand every bit of technology, you can't understand every bit of law because it is going to change as per the scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Something new is going to come up. Who knew about blockchain? But it did come up.
Right.
Maybe something from AI will come up. These challenges will always be there. So
Right.
just have the basic understanding, try
Mm-hmm.
to build your skills each day at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and it will add up in a few years.
Right. So, what lies ahead for you? What can we see you doing in the future?
I'll be seen in courts in Delhi
Right.
for a long time to come.
Right. That's great, sir. So thank you so much for coming on the show, sir. It was a great opportunity to talk to you because I have never had this conversation with somebody who is an expert in this field. So, and I think the viewers also got a lot from this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you,
It
sir.
was a
Okay,
pleasure.
thank you. So, please, guys, subscribe to the channel and please check out the description for all the social media links. Thank you so much.